over, and it's time to just have a quick overview of how every Arsenal player played for their respective teams. Welcome back to the Bar Arsenal. The last couple of weeks have been very tiring and tedious, starting from, of course, the unfortunate event that happened in the Carabao Cup final against Man City. There's no point crying over spilled milk. We've moved on from that, and every player had to go play for their respective nations in World Cup qualifiers and, of course, some meaningless friendlies. Earlier in the break, some Arsenal players had to withdraw due to injuries in the likes of Ben White, Bukayo Saka, Julian Timber, Gabriel, Saliba. There was so much talk on how Arsenal was cheating in quote. And I even took some time out to watch the Latte Femme, FK, talking about how we're cheating and all that. I think I really enjoyed it because for some reason when it gets to our turn, everyone just tends to whine. This is something that has been in existence for quite a long time. Even in the days of Sir Alex Ferguson, Man United players always stayed back with the time for international break because they had titles to win. And as you know, we're contending for the Premier League, 9 points ahead of Man City. We're in the FA Cup quarterfinals against Southampton, and we're also in the Champions League quarterfinals against Sporting CP. But enough about that. Let's focus about the players that played between yesterday and today, and we'll go no further than Kai Havertz. So Havertz is someone that actually needed the minutes, unlike the likes of Saka and White that were rested. And he played 45 minutes initially when Germany took on Switzerland. That was a game that ended in a 3-4 win for Germany. But yesterday, being Monday, Kai Havertz was part of the German squad that took on Ghana in a friendly match. There was even some time for him to catch up with Thomas Partey at the end of the game. But one key thing to note was that he played as a right winger. This time it was Nick Wolfimad that played at the centre forward with Gnabry behind him, Florian Wirtz on the left, Kai Havertz on the right. And Kai Havertz played only 45 minutes. He actually scored a penalty for Germany in the game. Very lovely taking penalty. He scored one against Leverkusen when he came back from injury, and now he also found himself on the score sheet against Ghana. In the game, there were also goals from Fatawu and Dennis Undav. Undav actually scored a very late goal in the 88th minute that finally gave Germany the victory. Nagelsmann was very happy with the victory from his team. But one thing to note is that here Kai Havertz played 63 minutes in the first game, 45 in the second game. He's someone that actually needs more games to gain more match fitness. So I'm happy that he went through this unscathed without any problem and is now back, to game time with Arsenal. Moving over to the youngsters, Max Dowman was part of the English team that was super against Portugal under 19s. Dowman actually scored one goal, a magnificent solo effort. You guys need to go online and check the video. This guy is a generational talent. We are so happy as Arsenal fans that he belongs to us, and obviously Super Booking is on the GCSEs and all that. And with Madueke currently in the leg brace, potentially not fit enough to play Southampton, and of course Sporting CP, Madueke is looking for a Bournemouth return. Dowman will probably be Saka's backup on the right-hand side. I would actually expect him to start against Southampton this weekend, with Saka getting more rest, because obviously we need Saka for the Sporting and the Bournemouth game. But Dowman actually showed his potential this season. Right from this season, we saw how good he was, but his crowning moment obviously came when we played against Everton, and we all know how that game panned out for him. For me, moving from the under-19 to the under-21, Nwaneri was the star of the England under-21 side that smashed Moldova under-21s 4-1. Nwaneri actually scored 2 goals in the game. He has really found life a bit difficult at Marseille. We sent him there to play under Roberto De Zerbi, but when he missed out on Champions League football and, of course, having struggled in the league, so De Zerbi left. And Nwaneri has, had a start and stop time in the club. With the injuries we've had to Odegaard, Iberechi Eze, Miguel Merino, Nwaneri would have had lots of game time now at Arsenal. But they always say hindsight is 2020. We actually sent him on loan to Marseille to get regular game time for him to come back stronger. But right now, we're not really seeing that happen. His performances have been start and stop at the club. And we're just hoping that, at the end of the campaign, he would have had enough minutes in his belt to come out to challenge for a place in the team. Now we're going to go to some heartbreak. Ricardo Calafiori was part of the Italian side that has crashed out of the World Cup for the third campaign in a row. That's 12 years without the World Cup for Italy, which is shocking. They came into this game following a win against, that was Northern Ireland on Thursday. And Calafiori was part of the back three alongside Bastoni and Mancini in this game against Bosnia. Bosnia had the ageless Edin Dzeko in attack for them. But unfortunately, after just 41 minutes, Alessandro Bastoni got a red card. And that red card really put, Italy in a very, very precarious position. How did the red card happen? Let me even check again. Is it violent conduct? Oh, yeah. So what happened? Donnarumma's goal kick was headed toward Demirovic. He went for a sliding challenge and brought down Memic, who was, going in on goal. So it was an error from Donnarumma that actually led to this moment. Barcelona getting a red card. Funny enough, Italy were leading through Moiskin early in the game. He scored a goal from a Barella assist. But with Barcelona getting that red card, Bosnia made a lot of changes, attacking changes to bring it to the game. And in the 79th minute, Haris Tapakovic, who actually came on as a sub for Ivan Basic, scored the equalizer. And that took the game to extra time. And in extra time, after 120 minutes, they had the penalty shootout. Bosnia started first. Benjamin Tahirovic played his first penalty. He scored. And of course, that Inter youngster, Francesco Pio Esposito, played his own penalty and missed. The goal scorer in the game, Haris Tapakovic, scored the second penalty for Bosnia to make it 2-0. And in Newcastle, defensive midfielder Sandro Tonali came for Italy and scored his as well. So with Bosnia leading 2-1, Kerim Alasbekovic made it 3-1. And unfortunately, Brian Cristante missed his own penalty to make it 3-1. So when Esme Badra, oh my God, I'm butchering this thing, man. When Esme Badrakaterevic, that's a good one, scored the fourth goal, that was the end for Italy. And of course, Calafiori and his teammates were obviously unhappy and in tears to miss out at yet another campaign, which is quite sad to see. I remember when Arshavin missed out on the 2010 World Cup for Russia, he was basically a shadow of himself for the rest of the campaign. So one can only hope that this disappointment doesn't weigh deep on Calafiori, especially with the fact that Piero Hincapié pulled up short in Ecuador's game against Morocco. And of course, Kelly is still kind of looking form to watch any Calafiori to be in his best with his A game as he comes back to the Emirates. Sticking with more heartbreak, Christian Nogard was part of the Denmark side that crashed out of the World Cup as well when he lost on penalties to Czechia. Initially, the first goal of the game was scored by Pavel Such. Then the Fulham defender, Joachim Andersen, equalized. It's a Premier League goal because it was Michael Damsgaard of Brentford that crossed the ball for Joachim Andersen of Fulham to make it 1-1. Then the game went into extra time, and the Wolverhampton Wanderers defender, Ladislav Krejci, who is also the captain of the Czech national team, made it 2-1 at the 100th minute. At the 110th minute, Kasper Hogg made it 1-1. Kasper Hogg is part of the Bodo Glimt team. Yes, I think he's the one, yes, that have been in very good form. So the game went into penalties. Christian Nogard came on as a sub for Victor Nelson in the 60th minute. Penalty shootout, as always, is anybody's game, as you would expect. Rasmus Højlund played first for Denmark and he missed. Thomas Chori of Slavia Prague played his and scored. It was down 1-0. Of course, the ageless Christian Eriksen came on. I don't know why he didn't play first, but Eriksen played his own penalty and scored to make it 1-1. Then West Ham's Thomas Suchek played his own penalty to make it 2-1 for the Czech Republic. Andres Deja came on for Denmark and missed his. It was 2-1. Then Ladislav Krejci, the captain of the Czech national team, had the opportunity to make it 3-1, but he missed his own as well. More drama. So Matthias Jensen of Brentford had the opportunity to make it 2-2, but he missed his own as well. That's 3 penalties missed for Denmark, which was quite sad. Then Mikael Sadilek scored the decisive penalty to make it 3-1 for Denmark. That was quite sad to see them miss 3 penalties actually, which was painful. And Christian Nogard, obviously, we cannot make the World Cup again. He's currently 32. And him missing out on this World Cup would mean that in the next one he'll be 36. And I don't think he's still available to play for Denmark, which is quite sad to see. Switching from heartbreak to share delight, Arsenal's Victor Gyokeres was basically the hottest striker in the international break, scoring 4 goals for Sweden as they finally made it to the World Cup. They had an initial rough campaign in the group stages of the qualifiers, but they managed to make it to the playoffs, and Gyokeres, turned up, scored a magnificent hat-trick against Ukraine in the last qualifier, and in this game, he made it 4 goals in 2. The first goal was scored by Antoni Elanga, for Sweden, and then Nikola Zalewski equalized for Poland. Jakob Kiwior was also in the Polish team as well. Then Gustav Lagerbäck made it 2-1 for Sweden, but they were pegged back again by Karol Swirecki of Poland. And in the 88th minute, our boy Victor Gyokeres came through and scored the decisive goal that sent Sweden to the World Cup. So this was unlike the Italy and Denmark game, there was no need for extra time. Gyokeres did the Lord's work in regulation time, and Sweden are going to the World Cup. So these were the 3 gunners that were actually in very influential games. Being in mind that these were World Cup qualifiers. So now it's time to look at the ones that just play some meaningless friendlies, just like Havertz. Starting with Ben White. We all know what happened with Ben White with the English national team. When he came on as a sub against Uruguay, there were so many boos for him. It was quite sad to see. I'm actually going to do a video about, why are the fans booing Ben White, because it didn't make sense to me. But then again, you can't really understand what happened. This was something that happened in 2022 in Southgate. There's so much uncertainty. Southgate didn't come out to say anything. White as well didn't come out to say anything. So everyone is just left with their opinions on the matter. But unfortunately, England lost to Japan. It was quite interesting. Obviously, the only Arsenal contingent here was Ben White. Eze had an injury prior to the international break. Obviously, Saka and Rice also pulled out. And Madueke had the leg breaks. The last time they played for Uruguay, which was quite sad. I'm just hoping that he'll be fully fit as the campaign goes in, instead of the other injuries we have. But Ben White played 59 minutes for England. He started as a right back and was eventually subbed for Valentino Livramento in the game. England lost to Japan. The only goal came in the 23rd minute from Kaoru Mitoma. Mitoma is someone who plies his trade in England for Brighton. He was assisted by Keito Nakamura. And of course, I'm sure you'll be very happy with the goal he scored for Japan. There were loads of substitutes as you would expect. The game started with the likes of Pickford in goal, White, Konsa, Guehi, and O'Reilly, Anderson and Maino in midfield, Rogers, Palmer, and Gordon in attacking midfield, and Foden as the first 9. But we had the likes of Hall, Livramento, Solanke, Jarrod Bowen, Ghana, Rashford, Bourne, and even Maguire coming to the game. But it was a loss for England against Japan. Moving over to the Spanish game against Egypt, Mendy came on as a sub in the 3-0 win against Serbia, but he was sent back home after feeling some discomfort in his knee. So for this game against Egypt, David Raya played 62 minutes for the team, while Christian Mosquera played the full 90. He made his debut against Serbia as a sub, but this time he played alongside Dean Huijsen, to test out his full international debut for Spain against Egypt. It was a ball 0-0 draw. There were a couple of chances. Spain actually had 25 shots, with 6 on target, but they were very wasteful, and the game ended in a 0-0 draw. So finally, there will be the game between Croatia and Brazil early in the morning on Wednesday. It's actually around 1 a.m., which is quite too early for us to watch it. But hopefully Martinelli will not have any injury because we also need our players. Trossard is someone that showed injury this campaign. And Martinelli obviously is one of our top scorers in the team this season, even though he has had a quite inconsistent campaign as well. So that's pretty much it. All our gunners are done with international football. All focus now is straight to the Premier League, the Champions League, and the FA Cup. As for about us now, I'm going to do the video about Ben White real quick after this one. And of course, we'll build up to the Southampton game on Saturday. It's going to be a late fixture on Saturday. We have the watch along that evening as well. And of course, we'll build to the Sporting CP game against the Sporting CP in Portugal. The last time we visited that ground, we smashed them 5-1. So I'm hoping that our lads can do that again. And of course, the Bournemouth game, which is an all-important one, as we strive to win the Premier League. So, guys, what do you think about an international break? I think it's done. We're happy to see that our players. Just honestly, we're going to see the Southampton game and really know who are really injured because these guys have played so much football this season. And as we can expect a couple of knocks here and there, so I can understand the players that were withdrawn, the ones that were sent back home after going on international duty. But so far, so good. The players are back, or they'll be heading back to London ahead of the game against Southampton over the weekend. But till then, come on, you Gunners.